one, BDSM is not always painful. I dom most people without ever touching them, and I think that's actually much more glorious.
Get in here.
Hey.
Welcome.
This is how I climb in.
Okay.
Oh, glam.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can say however you want. I like to sometimes sit
you're
like
actually
this.
going full.
Or like sometimes I'll go like this.
Okay.
Get cozy.
Yeah, what, I don't know. You know
Have you ever sat on a stirrup for a combo? Here, bring the mic a little closer to your mouth.
Okay. Is this
Oh,
too
it's good.
close?
No, it's good.
Okay.
I like
Ooh,
it.
it's sensual.
Oh my God, we have Kim Pham in the house, you guys. So exciting. Welcome to the
Thank
stirrup.
you. This is, I've done a lot of wild things, and this has got to be a top 10 experience.
I like it because you look so goth and like Dommy against the pink. Guys,
you.
we have Kim Pham in the stirrup chairs with us today. We're very excited.
Thank you for having
Dommy
me.
mommy, entrepreneur.
Yes.
You do it all. I've been so excited. You were like one of the first people we talked about having on just because we love the confidence. We love breaking taboos and we love women in charge. And so you embody all of that.
Thank you.
So thank you for
Oh my
being
God, you're
here.
Such a gem for saying that.
Thanks. And I love a queer, you know what I mean?
We do. We love a queer.
Love a queer.
Maybe too much.
Too much. I like, that's all I want to talk about at all times.
Yes.
I just want to be around women at all times.
Sapphic vibes, always.
You know what? I just learned about that. I never knew
Girl.
what that was. Yeah.
Revoking the card.
I know. Can you explain to people what that is? Because people never
It's
use
just
that
women
term.
loving women.
And it comes from, is it a Roman term? Is it like back?
Girl, I'm not a dictionary.
Sorry. Look, I had to look it up. I was like, where did sapphic come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I know. I love it. And I love the word dyke. It's like a new thing that I think people think it's like very taboo.
It's a reclamation, which I really appreciate.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do I even start with your journey? I just love it. You're wearing a carabiner. It's so dopey. I love that you've, included everything that you love, like within one. Like, tell us a little bit about your journey, like how it all started. You started your brand with your sister, Omsom.
Yes. So yeah, we started Omsom, which at its heart is a proud and loud Asian food brand. In fact, the name Omsom originates from the Vietnamese phrase for rowdy. And so starting this brand, which was very much about the reclamation and celebration of Asian flavors and Asian communities, we really realized like, oh, this is a proud and loud brand. In what ways are we as individuals proud and loud? And perhaps in what ways have we been silenced or flattened as Asian Americans, as women, and women of color? It really forced us to look at in what ways were we silenced? And for me, I know I had a huge kind of resurgence of my identity around starting Omsom, in which I realized like, okay, I came out. Realized like, oh, she's queer. I came out very late in life.
How old were you?
I was 26.
Yeah, because I just recently came like all the way gay. Like I was always like a little gay, but now I'm all the way.
Oh, how are you feeling?
Yeah, like I never had a coming out, which was kind of annoying. So I was like, you guys, I'm gay. And everyone's like, yeah, you've
no
made out with
shit.
all of us. Yeah, I was like, what?
Very on brand.
Yeah,
Very
so
on brand for us.
26.
26, and then also realized like, oh, there had been this part of myself that I'd really neglected or felt deep shame actually around, which was my kinkiness. And it feels so wild to have that be such a big part of your identity, but I've always been an alt weirdo. Like I was first gen Vietnamese American. I grew up in a town that was 98% white.
Where?
In south of Boston.
Wow.
Yeah, very conservative, very blue collar. And so my existence, I was the first in my family to go through the American school system, was constantly riddled by feeling othered, by feeling different, and having deep shame around that. Yeah, I don't know. I think I learned really early on that I've just got to own it. And that's the only way that I can continue to like exist on this earth.
Yeah.
And so I just like full sent on the weirdo vibes. Like I was a bad kid growing up, very like Warped Tour, kissing boys in mall parking lots.
Yeah.
Type of vibe. And then, I grew up to be this. And
I love that.
Stepped into the kinkiness, went to dom school, like learned a ton about BDSM once I realized, okay, this is a big part of my identity and I want to like really fucking understand it. Porn has given us a very one-sided, very reductive perception of BDSM. I'm not anti-porn at all. I love porn, but it's more just BDSM has become this really singular thing to a lot of our culture and our society. And I refuse to believe that was the fullness of it. And so studied from these incredible doms and realized like, oh my God, there's so much more than whips and chains. And actually it's so much deeper and more communicative and connecting and healing and joyful. And that when I left that, I was like, oh man, I really want to spend my time dispelling these myths around BDSM and showing folks like, yo, this can be deeply profound as an experience.
100%.
So,
What did you get, like a little diploma? They put a handcuff on you and you're like,
I know, everyone's like, is there a certification? I was like, yeah, it's hung up on my wall. No, like,
is there a little branding? They do, like no comment.
For another time.
Got it.
No, it was just basically like learn a ton of shit and go off into the world and practice it now.
Do you feel like you always felt this little like kinkiness? Like for me, I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show like when I was like 7 and it was over for me after that. So like, did you have a moment that sort of like incited that perv in you?
First of all, I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me how these childhood kind of moments always inform some things. Not always, but can inform some things. I don't know. I think I've always just been a weirdo, and like power and power exchange has always been really sexy to me.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing like a cowboy editorial shoot, like a fashion shoot.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was like a bad guy in a cowboy hat with his like hands tied behind his back. And I remember being like,
what's that?
What is happening to me right now? And I just really enjoyed like, what does it look like when someone, the energy that I'm obsessed with when I'm in this space is the feeling of like a dog pulling at its chain, like just trying so hard to get to something. Oh, like that feeling, I want to capture that like forever in all of my scenes.
I love it. And I love the juxtaposition, of course, like you're a businesswoman. Like, what does that look like? You know, when you come in, you're like, do you change yourself at all? Or like, do you keep that same energy? And do you keep that same energy? Like, do you walk into, you know?
I want to first acknowledge that I have deep and immense privilege as a business owner. And that is why I'm able to show up the way that I am. Mm-hmm. I think it would be so much more difficult if I wasn't kind of, you know, paying myself. Like it would be really hard for me to exist in corporate America as me. So I'm very grateful and I do want to acknowledge that privilege. But yeah, in the beginning of the Omsom days, I remember my sister Vanessa, she's my co-founder. Her and I had to have like a real sit down conversation.
Yeah.
She was like, dude, I love you. And she's like, I will always ride for you. I just want us to make a conscious decision together that like you doing your thing on the internet, doing BDSM education and being really open about who you are and your queerness, that will affect our business. Right. There are investors who have already talked to us and said, oh, it's interesting that Kim does this online.
Yeah.
And for every one of those conversations, so many others probably behind closed doors that are like, oh, this is not professional or this is not what a founder is supposed to look like. And she was like, I will always support you, but I do want us to make that decision together. And I think that was a moment for me where I was like, dude, this is where your values like are really tested. Like you want to be proud and loud, you want to be unapologetic and bold, cool. This might actually meaningfully impact your business. And I think we ultimately decided together that, no, we're going to do our thing. Like, this is the whole point of Proud and Loud. This is the whole point of Omsom Rowdy is for us to be unapologetically ourselves as Asian Americans. And if this is where we kind of like kowtow, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, kowtow
I've never heard that.
I think it means to like
tiptoed.
Yeah. Or kind of like submit.
Yeah. Oh.
Submit to these norms. Then, you know, are we not kind of part of the problem? And so we made that choice and I continue to do my thing. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are investors who maybe turned us down, but to be honest, I think of living your values out loud as both a magnet and a filter. Like it's going to attract people who fucking see you, who want to like ride for what you ride for and like want to join on that journey with you. And then it's going to filter out people who are never ever going to see you fully, who are never ever going to really actually meaningfully like be a part of that story. And so, yeah, it's a risky, bold move. I'm really glad we did it though.
Aren't you glad? I mean, I feel like I'm an immigrant as well. I moved to Virginia when I was like a kid from Brazil, and like the inner homophobia, that inner thing of like, I have to be, even in comedy, like I thought I had to be a certain way for such a long time. And like, I did it so late. So like kudos, wow, you got to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the people that you don't want to work with, those are not going to be the
like,
people that you attract.
And you understand this, like when you grow up as a kid of immigrants or as an immigrant, you have a lot of internalized scarcity.
Oh yeah.
Like my parents are Vietnamese refugees and the lesson they raised us with was like maximize optionality. Like whatever you can do to have the most options on the table, you need to do that. And so it's actually quite a practice of abundance to be like, you know what? I'm going to say no to some shit. It's not aligned with me. No is a new word I learned.
Yeah, boundary is a Gen Z thing for me. I'm like, boundaries? What do you mean? Like, I have to, you know.
So that was like a hard lesson for me to learn of like, we can say no to stuff if it doesn't feel aligned with who we are and what we're trying to build. So
do you think that you get more pushback on the dom thing or on the woman thing in business?
Oh, definitely the dom thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, and the combo, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, men are like, no, wait a minute. I'm driving the boat.
Fun little intersectionality of like woman, queer, woman of color, dom. Yeah. I think we have a lot of sex negative sentiment in our culture, particularly around power exchange.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I've heard everything. I've heard like, you're a man hater. I've heard you're so traumatized. Like every fucking cliche you can think of when it comes to kink, I've heard. And so, whatever, I'm doing my thing.
I mean, I feel like it's, obviously even now, like with all this stuff happening in the news, like with all these like men in power who like have these weird kinks and these like negative things. Don't you feel like sometimes when people don't come out, it's like, starts to fester inside and become like almost a negative thing. So like really, you know what I mean? Like you hear about all these businessmen who are like, who do want to be submissive.
Sure.
And like the only time they release is like when somebody's like stepping on their neck or like choking them. And it's like, it's so cool to be able to release that and use that power like in an energetic growth way rather than like a submissive, weird, like only behind closed doors kind of a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I could like talk for hours about this. So I'm going to try and like keep it concise. What I love about kink is that it allows us to access parts of ourselves that we don't typically get to access.
Tell me, like.
And so it's creating space for a feeling, an emotion, a sensation that you don't get to typically access. I'm really hesitant to over psychoanalyze kink. That's just not interesting to me.
Right.
Like I think we're born the way that we're born.
Yeah.
And like we like what we like. And I'm really grateful that kink creates like a safe container for us to play. Like one of my favorite lessons that one of my early dom mistresses told me, she asked us, she was like, hey girls, like what do you think kink is?
Yeah.
And me being fucking me, I had this like, so eager. And I was like, oh my God, it's like, and I had this really annoying ass intellectual answer of like, it's when it's ethical and communicative power exchange and like consent is at the heart of all of it. And like had this annoying textbook answer.
Yeah.
And she literally turned to me and she was like, girl, no. She's like, all kink is childhood play and imagination, but with adult sexual privilege. And I became obsessed with this framing of like, if you and I met at the playground when we were 10,
right.
I'd be like, I'm a cop, you're a robber, go. And we'd instantly create this world, like without even knowing each other, without talking to each other, and then we just play, right?
Yeah.
But by the time you and I show up as adults, there's so much ego, trauma, insecurity. There's shit in
glasses.
the room.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're not able to have that same level of play and imagination. She's like, all kink is creating a safe container for that. And maybe someone has an orgasm. Maybe, right?
Oh my God.
Like
what a bonus.
But it doesn't have to be. It's actually at the root of it, this deep creativity and like joyful force that we allow us to like experiment in.
Yeah.
And for many folks that can be joyful, connecting, it can be sexy, and it can also be healing. Like for a lot of folks, they get to maybe access emotions that they aren't allowed to typically access. So I realized that a lot of folks were coming to me because, particularly like cis-het men, were coming to me because they aren't allowed to access femininity. And what I mean by that is not being girly, although that can be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's accessing emotions like softness, vulnerability, weakness, like emotion. And I was like, oh, and so it comes out in a quote unquote extreme way by society standards where they want to be dominated.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, actually, it makes a ton of sense to me in a society that constantly demonizes men for trying to be soft, that doesn't allow them to access therapy without ridicule. Like, of course, it's going to come out in this one area that men are allowed to be expressive, right? And so once I saw that, I was like, okay, there's something really powerful, magnificent, profound here that is so much more than whips and paddles and choking and whatever. It's actually this deeply like human thing that we shove in the dark, and I want to fucking put a light to it. So sorry, long story short, that's why I do what I do, is because yes, it's fun. Yes, someone might have like a sexy little moment, but it's actually for me so much deeper than that.
It's therapeutic. And like, even our last guest, I'm like, what kind of man are you into? And I would say, 80% of women that I ask that to, cis hetero women, like, are like, I want a man who can like pick me up and like that masculinity that we like overdrive into men. Like there isn't a lot of room for men to be sensitive and to be feminine and so.
And like before I was a dom, I've always been a feminist of like, fuck the patriarchy, fucks women over. And it was not until I became a dom that I was like, oh, it also fucks men over. And like, no, we all lose under it. And so I think BDSM is a way for us to begin to play with the rigid structures of toxic masculinity and begin to subvert it and begin to kind of give a middle finger to it. Is it a replacement for therapy? No. Men, please also go to therapy.
It's an add-on, yeah.
And if it's the first stop in someone's journey of experimenting with expression and with power, hell yeah. Like, let's like fucking dig into it,
I love it. And I'm sure there's like a ton of misconceptions. Like I know like I have a poly friend.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, so you can just fuck whoever you want. And she's like, no, there's actually a lot. We talk all the time. Like we talk nonstop.
It's more talking than fucking.
Yeah. So tell me like the 3 biggest misconceptions about doms.
Oh my God. Do you have 8 hours?
Because I know you have I saw your red flags videos.
Yeah. That's like, it's my biggest content because people have so many misconceptions. Okay. 1, it's always painful.
Oh.
BDSM is not always painful. I dom most people without ever touching them. And I think that's actually much more glorious.
Okay.
But like we can get into that later.
No, I like it. We'll go back.
After hours.
Yeah.
2, I would say that it's inherently abusive. And 3, another misconception would be that you are only ever dominant or submissive. And you stay that way your whole life. It's like a hat you put on and you wear it forever. That's not true.
Wait, go a little bit into that one because I feel like that is so like black and white.
Yeah,
I mean,
surprise, surprise. In a society that loves labels, we want to say like I'm a dom top.
Yeah,
I'm a femme bottom, whatever, right? And like love. Oh, is that okay?
Don't knock our mics.
I love that we want to use labels to self-identify and find community. I never ever want to like say, labels are useless.
Right.
And I want to create space for fluidity. Like I always say, I am a very dom leaning switch. And it's fully dependent on the season of my life. It's fully dependent on the partner. It's fully dependent on my headspace. Like I want to leave room for fluidity. And I think sometimes people get really stuck into these identities of, oh, well, this is who I am. And this is who I'm going to be forever.
Well, it's easier, right? Like,
yes,
it's easier to live in a box.
Yeah.
Like, it's cozy in there. And wait, is switch the same thing as verse? Like just so.
Yes.
Okay.
Where it's like, you can be dominant or submissive. It's a spectrum and you can kind of have fun with it.
I like it because like as a woman with a man, like I was very different than I am with a woman. Like, and for a long time when I first came out, I was like, some girl's just gonna like finger me and it's gonna be the best. Like, and that wasn't happening. And I was like, what's going on? And
like,
we're all the lesbians. Like, and then I realized like that was something I really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my inner homophobia lived in that, where I had so many bad experiences with men being too aggressive towards me. Real. I didn't want to ever make someone feel that way with my aggressiveness.
Totally.
So the inner homophobia came from my own trauma and like my own, you know. But then something switched where I was like, I just have to try because like, if I don't, and then everything changed for me. Like the way I sit, the way I live in my body, the way I make decisions, like everything changed, which is so weird from like such a minor decision.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been fun.
What a journey.
What a journey. Yeah. Like, what's been your favorite moment in business where you get to go like, oh, and I'm a dom? Like, has there been a moment where you just kind of...
I don't think it's ever that
like black and white.
stark.
You're not like, thank you for the deal.
Yeah,
and by the way.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
No, it's never been anything that stark. I think we actually, we've had a couple pitch conversations where Vanessa and I are kind of talking to investors. There's a couple meetings in, and they're like, Kim, where do you get your creative force? And they maybe haven't seen. And I'm like, so I'm a non-normative person. By the way, I'm pretty big on BDSM TikTok. And and you always see them be like, they're like trying to be cool because they're like, ooh, she's a creative. But then they're also like, ugh. You can literally see like the sweat drip down on their face. And I think they're always nervous that I'm going to ask them and put them on the spot and be like, what's your kink? Which is something I would never do. But this is actually something really funny that I think when people find out about this part of me, because our society is so sex negative, it becomes the one single thing they focus on because there's no other avenues in their life that they get to talk about kink or BDSM.
You're the entertainment all of a sudden,
so they're
right?
like, oh my God. So like, do you do this? And I'm like, you would never ask anyone this normally.
Yeah, you would never be like, Robert, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had something in your butt today?
Yeah. So that's been an interesting thing for me to hold, of being a professional person who I think is good at her job, and also have this odd expectation of hypersexualization kind of put on me. So
yeah, the hypersexualization is such an interesting thing, because like, for me, I want to talk about sex all the time.
Yeah.
So I fall into that category of like, the second I meet a porn star, I'm like, tell me everything. Like, tell me about, like because I just want to talk about it and not feel like it's a pervy or a weird thing. Like today I posted a photo of my butt. Like, I'm Brazilian. I'm very open about my sexuality, right? But then there's always that little voice in my head, right? Like, oh my God, if Meryl Streep sees this. No, I don't know why she's the one. But do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, she is.
She's the one.
Yeah.
There's this whole like idea, the hetero idea of me. Like, for such a long time, I wanted to be perceived in a certain way.
Yeah.
And then I hated when lesbians were like, I'm a lesbian. I was like, we get it. And I think it's because I wanted to be that so badly.
Oof.
So do you think that there's
layers?
There's a lot of hate towards like BDSM because there's like suppressed sort of desire for that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a little bit of that. I think a lot of it is just like a lack of understanding and a fear. And I think it also starts to tap into, especially with me as like a woman of color who's the dominant, there is this kind of layer of, oh, well, is she using this as like an avenue for her hatred or her pain or her hurt?
Right. They think it's like, oh, it's trauma immediately.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so complex that it's hard for me to be like, no, yes, and so that there's a lot of that too in the room of just like lack of understanding and like a fear.
Everybody needs a pamphlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Now you're coming from an Asian family, obviously, that they're not like...
They're so great.
Seem
My
very
parents
open.
are like hippie weirdos.
Okay, good, because I'm like,
raised in like a pretty
community.
sex positive household. My parents follow me on Instagram and like all my stuff. Now I'm not sitting down at the dining table being like, hey dad,
right? Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Latex, right?
Yeah. But I think they're just kind of like, we raised weirdos because we are weirdos. And they really like that I'm pretty like counterculture.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a fun story. So I'm very similar to my father. And just
You're very what? I'm sorry?
Similar to my father.
Okay, yeah.
And just to give you like an understanding of him. So he emigrated to the US in the late 70s, post-Vietnam War, refugee, obviously came from like deeply horrific things.
Yeah.
And when he was raising us, I remember the number one lesson he told me, he was like, I came to America for you to be the weirdest version of yourself. And I was like, all right, dude, bet. Like, let's go. And I had him as the model for it. My father is 5'4", jacked, tatted, rode motorcycles growing up.
Stop.
Total weirdo. And I remember, I'll tell one story. I was like maybe 12 or something, and he was picking us up from school. And he had his phone like mounted on the dashboard. And he got like a text or something, and it lit up. And his phone wallpaper is a shirtless, headless photo of his chest. And it's like his six-pack, the tattoos, he's like glistening. Yeah. And I remember being absolutely mortified. I was like, oh my God, why is my dad? And now as a fucking 32-year-old, I'm like, I am working my whole life to be even an ounce of confident as he is.
Yeah.
Like the amount of self-love that this man just had as like a refugee, came here with no money, didn't speak any English. I'm fighting for even an ounce of that. And so I see that modeled for me, and I'm like, dude, he just fully was like, yeah, I'm hot and I want to look at myself, which is like kind of radical as an Asian man.
100.
Who
as
came
any
here in the
man,
late 70s.
Like,
I was like,
as a
dude,
dad.
Yeah, as a dad, as a parent. And I think about that moment and I was like, okay, I'm like my dad's daughter. Like,
and how lucky, like, can you imagine not having the support of your family through something like this?
I'm very lucky. They're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I feel very grateful.
It's cool.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your vagina? Do you have a good relationship with her?
I do. It's taken some years.
Okay, tell me.
A lot of work. I mean, I think in the beginning I was just like, what's going on? Yeah. And I also had that like weird, young kid thing where you're like, I must shave her. And I'm like, I'm a hairy Vietnamese woman with thick, dark hair. Mm-hmm. And I think for a long time I was just like, oh, like she serves a function, but I'm not gonna enjoy her aesthetically. And now I'm like, oh, I love her. I know her much better now.
Yeah.
I'm like attuned to her seasons. We go to the OB often. We get tested often. And so it feels like a very healthy, collaborative relationship.
I love it. I feel like you're in such a good spot in your life. Like I've been watching you. You did a lot of traveling. Like I'm a big journaler. So
yes.
like talk a little bit about that and like how important that's been for you.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of constant self-reflection. So I journal every day. I do this thing called morning pages.
Yeah. I love it.
By The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, my girl.
Love The Artist's Way. I've done it, yeah.
And I've just like, I'm only here because I've constantly made room to just like look at my shit. Like, dude, that's all kink is like, it's like looking at your shit with someone else and then playing with your shit. And it's just, so I think the more work that you do internally, the juicier the play can be.
And the more people are interested, right, in who you are. Because
although the I can be whoever you want me to be is kind of like a fun place as a submissive to play with.
So it's cool to see this like Gen Z generation just being like, this is me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like kind of jealous of them. Like, I'm like, fuck you, you know.
Although they're having less sex than
they
our
are.
generation.
I've heard about this.
Yeah.
Is it because we lost so many years of socializing?
I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot because it does feel like a little bit of a pendulum swing.
Yeah. Like in the 70s, everybody was fucking, then AIDS, then we got scared, and then in the 90s, everybody was kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like it's because I think they're not as connected. I feel like we don't get as much time to be with each other because we're online more and on our phones more.
Yeah. And I think culturally we're swinging in a more conservative place and and then also I think like Gen Z, you know, like this kind of trad wife thing, like I don't know. I don't have a thesis on it just yet, but I'm like, you guys.
Yeah.
Please have fun.
Please.
Go play.
The trad wife thing is like a trending thing. It's been on my feed so much lately.
I think it's honestly a reaction to the exhaustions of capitalism, but that's another podcast.
Today I was tired. I was having like a hard day and I went to Trader Joe's and I'm like, oh God, I'm so tired. And then I see this Amish woman with like 7 children and like she's wearing her wig and I'm like, Jesus, like, you know, the freedom that I have, like, you know, that I get to live this life and like tell pussy jokes for a living. Like, what a life, you know? Now,
the American dream.
Do you have like a dom story that you can share that's like a funny or like a weird? I would love to hear one that I know that there's like confidentiality, like patient, doctor. But is there one that happened to you?
We have to kind of keep it a little PG. I will say.
You don't have to.
I have a submissive whom I adore deeply, who comes to my house to clean once a month. He does a deep clean and he wears a collar and then he like delivers all my packages for me and he wears a collar underneath his clothes and it brings us such joy. Such joy.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing that probably brings him so much joy.
It's service.
Because I've been hearing a lot about like these women who have, what's the relationship where they talk down to them or they'll like be mean to them. There's a name for it. Like
degradation.
Degradation. Yeah. Like, so when they're like, that's a real kink. Like, tell me a little bit about that because I've always been curious.
I mean, there's multiple ways to dom someone, like largely degradation, humiliation, denial, deprivation.
What's denial? You just go like,
Denial is largely spoken about within like the orgasm / like access to your parts.
Oh, like you can't have it. Oh, like deny, like
it's chastity.
It's not denial, like la la la.
It can be that too, but
okay.
it's largely, I would say, when people talk about denial, it's largely like orgasm control.
Oh, like
chastity.
You can't come yet. You can't come yet.
Yes,
I like that.
or like you don't even get access because you're put in a cage.
Now, have you been put in a cage or never? Because you're a dom. Or like I want to be in this cage, so I'm putting myself in this cage.
I have not been put in a cage. I've danced in cages, but that's different.
That's life. That's
energy.
College. Yeah.
I've put people into cages. Yes. I do quite enjoy it.
Do you have like a large tool? Do you have like a lot of?
No, because I live in Brooklyn, girl.
Oh, right. You're tiny ass apartment. Yeah. You got drawers full of shit.
But like there are dungeons, you know, in cities all over that you can rent and work with. And so,
wait, okay. So tell me a little bit about that. They're just dungeons and then you rent out a room like a WeWork kind of a thing.
I'm in dungeon like 74A.
I'm in dungeon room 4A. The person next door is like having a meeting.
Yeah, Goodwill Hunting. That's the name of that dungeon. Oh God, we were conference names. There's lots of dungeons around, and depending on the city, some of them are a little bit more public and can, you know, an average everyday person can rent it, or dungeons that are specifically for sex workers and pro doms who take sessions out of there.
Pro dom, like how do you become a pro dom? Like who?
You get paid. You just decide to do it. Yeah. which I'm team sex worker all the way. I've never been a sex worker, but I'm team sex worker all the way.
Yeah, of course. And like, look, we're here at like a female-driven company. Like we're finally like doing things for women. You know, I hope that becomes more of a thing.
Yeah,
you know, there's so many more women entrepreneurs now that are like selling like. Women are finally making women products, you know, like underwear and gummies and things for like, one of the things I'm kind of going through right now is perimenopause. I'm 40 and it was a real life shift. Bitch. Thank you so much. That's why I say it. But it's been like a real life shift for me where everything's changed. Like, it's not a like, whoops, like it is like a life changing, like, what do I want to do with my life now because of this? And so that's where this all stemmed from, like the education of that. Yeah. So it's cool that you're like a dom mom. I'm a peri mom. I'm a peri mommy.
I love that.
And you're a dommy mommy.
I really am.
Do you have something that you haven't done in dom that you're looking forward to?
That I'm looking forward to. You know, I'm very lucky. I've done lots of things.
Yeah.
I would
love to read your journals. Also, your handwriting is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, cursive.
I actually reflect before and after all of my scenes because I really want to like capture the energy.
So that you call them scenes?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
No way. That's
when
cool.
you have like a hard start and stop to, you know, a BDSM exchange.
Yeah.
A scene can be, you know, a couple hours. It could be a longer term dynamic. Like, yeah.
Do you decide that beforehand? Like, it's all very laid out?
Yes, that's part of my negotiation process, which is everyone thinks it's. People are like, we should just flow. And I'm like, not when we are involving potentially painful instruments.
Right.
Like we should, I think that's another misconception. People are like, I don't want to talk about it. I should just flow. They should just know what I want. I'm like, this is awful. And another way that we don't talk about our needs and boundaries.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Shocker.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, something I've wanted to try. I mean, I low-key have like a medical kink. So this is actually
welcome.
Really,
do you want to take these home for a bit?
I'm like kind of about it. Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm like, isn't the texture so
it's
good?
It's a textural thing. I think it's a power thing.
Yeah.
I think it's like an instrument. Like there's stainless steel. They're potentially dangerous and life-saving. Like there's something there.
We could maybe find like an ulcer and you never know it. Yeah. And like, how do you come up with the safe word?
So I use the stoplight system.
Okay.
I think personally it's the best, but essentially, because everyone's like pineapple, blah, that's so annoying.
Oh, I like a funny, like weird, like.
I mean, do you, and as long as it works and everybody agrees on it ahead of time and y'all are crystal clear on the definitions, amazing. Yeah. But I use a stoplight system, red, yellow, green. Green, great, all systems go, keep going. Yellow is pause, check in.
Okay.
And red is full stop, go into aftercare, and we talk about it.
Aloe immediately.
And I think, and I think I really love it. It's super simple. You'll probably never use those words in a scene. There's things like that. People have done like taps, blinking, like depending on how restricted you are, you know, you do need
I want to learn more about tying stuff. Like, are there classes that you can take?
Tons.
What is it called? The Japanese?
Shibari.
What is it?
Shibari.
Shibari. I want to learn about
Japanese rope bondage. I love shibari as an art. I have such an appreciation for it. Yes, suspensions, gorgeous.
Yeah.
I am too lazy.
So much rope.
My ties are simply functional.
Yeah.
I'm like, does it do the job? Can you not move? Great. Does it need to be beautiful? No, because it's functional.
I think I want to investigate that more because I have a really hard time letting go of control.
Okay.
So like that's been something that I like.
Tell me more about that.
I just have a hard time. Like even when someone's doing something for me, I'm overlooking them in micro, like managing everything.
And do you want to play with that?
I think I do want to play with that.
Interesting.
And I thought I would have like a real like claustrophobic feeling, but I've been taping my mouth at night and then like I do this and it feels very like cocoon to me and it feels like kind of nice. So I think I would feel good like tied up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like putting all the elements together.
Okay.
Like I need to be tied up.
Tell me this. When you are in a submissive mindset in the bedroom, what are the sort of emotions that you like to feel as a submissive?
See, I have a hard time receiving pleasure.
Okay.
Like I have a hard time being like, this is just for me. I'll go like, did you like doing that? Like, do you want to do that? And like my girlfriend's always like, let's practice just doing something for you. Like this is just for you. You don't care about anything else. Like that's a new thing for me.
Okay.
I was an older sister, immigrant family.
Real.
Like I was the glue. I did everything.
Real.
In charge of the emotional balance of my whole family. Like, so that's a new thing where like, if I just lay back and get eaten out and I'm not thinking about like, with guys, I'd be like, oh, sorry, does my vagina smell? Does like, is it good? Is the hair good? Like I would constantly be thinking about them. And now I can just like lay back and get eaten out. It's like a new thing. And I'm 40.
Yeah.
So like I invite women to like
Yes.
really do things for themselves and not feel like it's a selfish thing. Because as women, we feel like
Totally.
we're supposed to always be pleasing
People pleasers, and to center on your own pleasure and your own experience is quite radical.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that it took me so long. And it was because of journaling. Like I started to realize that I was always journaling about
Wholesome.
this person's feeling this way. This person felt good, blah, blah,
And
blah.
you're
And
like,
I'm like,
how many times did I
feel?
use the word I? Yeah. Yeah.
And you would think I love talking about myself. I'm on stage all the time, but it's for other people.
Yeah.
Right? I'm making other people laugh. I never really was talking about what I wanted to talk about. And now I'll talk about stuff that doesn't make people laugh. And I go, I don't care. It's too late.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
You know? Thanks.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to get tied up. It just cuts to you tying me up on the ground. They're like, should we cut? I'm like, no, cut. Like, I feel like a lot of women are not like as confident. Like, it's cool to see someone like so confident. Like, it's so fun to sleep with someone who's so confident because in a way it makes you more confident. So like, is there advice that you have for women who are like on that journey of like wanting to feel more confident with themselves, like in bed, out of bed? Like, I mean, it's cool what you did. You started a business and you're like, I'm a dom and I'm
I know. I get
gay.
asked this question all the time.
Yeah.
And I literally am like, I think I was dropped as a baby. That's like the
No.
only way I can. I'm like, I don't know why I'm this way. I don't understand.
No, but I think that's so cool. Like, you know, you had a journey of finding yourself too. You weren't just like, hello,
Okay.
like,
yes. Oh, okay.
you traveled, you saw things. Like,
Yeah.
what are some things that started to inspire you? Like, for me, I had sex with someone who fucked me, like a girl who fucked me.
Okay.
And I was
you're
like,
whoa.
ooh. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
did not even know it was possible.
Yeah.
And so that started to make me want to explore like what I could do for women.
Okay,
I also dated a
interesting.
guy who made me be like, I want to be like you. Like he was such a good guy and made me feel so good that I was like, I want to do that for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think for me, the turning point is I was in this really lovely, long-term, very vanilla relationship of 4
Yeah.
years.
Guy or girl?
A guy.
Okay.
And I got out of that relationship.
I shouldn't have even, obviously I did.
I got out of that relationship. Again, lovely human being.
Yeah.
But I did that thing that a lot of people do when they get out of a relationship and they're like, who the fuck am I? And
Yeah.
so whenever I come up to an existential crisis, I do one thing. I go to an Irish pub, I order a pint of Guinness, I bring my notebook, and I just
Yeah.
journal. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to write every single thing that I think I know about myself. Like, I'm Kim, I'm straight. And like, I literally wrote these things. And I went by them line by line and tried to determine, is this thing truly mine? Or was this given to me by society, by culture, by my family, etc.? And it was in that process that I realized like, oh, I actually don't know if I'm straight. Okay, cool, came out. And then the next piece was I'm an Asian woman and I'm submissive. And I literally was like, is that actually my thing? But I had been raised in America where unfortunately our sex ed is porn. And all of the messages that I was seeing in porn and movies, you know, culture was, oh, Asian women are these docile little lotus blossoms.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I played the part. I was like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to look and sound in bed. And it was when I was like, is that actually fucking mine? Is that actually who I am? That I realized, okay, there's so much more room to play in terms of my identity, not just sexually, but also across the board. And then that led me ultimately to Omsom, led me to BDSM, led me to my queerness, was just like an interrogation
Of yourself.
of myself and whether or not that shit was given to me by societal norms. The second you crack that can open,
There's no stopping.
there's no stopping
I
it.
agree,
It's
yeah.
a boulder rolling downhill. And so then I started to be like, okay, let me question more. And then it ultimately like got to the bedroom and I was like, is this what I want? And what would it look like to radically center myself? Not in a way that's abusive or exploitative, but in a way that actually introduces a lot more ownership to my pleasure and my journey. And so then I was like, all right, fuck it, BDSM, here we go, and learned so much. And like did all the things, tried all the things, realized, oop, this is not for me. That's another thing.
Too much.
If you can feel safe and like okay enough try to do things not to learn what you like, but to learn what you don't like. It's almost easier to like cross it off.
The empty space.
Yes. Yeah. Than it is to be like, I like this.
I like it
you
all.
know? Yeah. And so that was really helpful for me too, is just like, okay.
Can you imagine like being a woman and just going through life and like never even having an orgasm? Like, I feel like, I don't know what the number is, but it's like a ridiculous amount of women never have had an orgasm.
It's devastating, the orgasm
And it
gap.
is, because so many women have sex for men. They don't have it for themselves. Like, I feel like I see women like that all the time, and I just want to like shake them and like, you know,
it's tough.
A lot of women don't even look at their vagina. There's so much shame.
Yeah, there's a lot of internalized shame with this stuff.
Yeah, like I always invite people that when they tell, like, when you're so confident, blah, blah, I'm like, look at your vagina in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, literally just take off your pants and look at your vagina. Like, I have friends who get undressed in front of their husbands in the dark only. It's sad. I know.
My heart hurts for them.
I know it hurts. And I'm like, oh my God, just get naked. Like, but it's not easy for everybody.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we lock up for so long.
Guilt, shame, religious stuff. Like,
family.
There's so much. There's so much there.
Yeah. So this has been really fun. Yay. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to get out there that you feel like you want to share, or you feel like is important for women to hear? Because I want these like younger women to find this and go like, oh my God, like this is inspiring for me in some way, or this drives me to do this thing in my life.
Something that I think quite a lot about is that self-care is this like billions-dollar industry, right?
Yeah.
Skincare, hair, nails, makeup, etc. Very grateful for those things. And yet when it comes to our sexuality, we like lock it in this little box that we like shove under our bed, and we only bring out when we're horny, and then we engage with it, and the second we come, we shove it back away. And I fully believe that our sexuality is like a vital energy force in our lives. And it actually controls so much more than we think. And so I just, you know, you don't have to be kinky, you don't have to engage in BDSM, but I do hope that you engage with your sexuality, you look at it in the light, and you start to build compassion and understanding with it, because the more that we suppress it and we hide it away and we make it this like dark, dirty thing, actually the more that it ends up controlling us perhaps in a negative way. And so I just encourage folks to like look at it. That's all I want folks to do.
Bring your box out of the box.
Like, you don't have to
unbox your box.
Yeah. You don't have to like use whips and paddles and chains. Sure, if that's your thing. Oh, I love that for you. And like, let's talk. But it's more just like, can you just look at it and feel compassion for it and like have understanding with it? And I think you'll find a lot of joy and healing and connection through that. So
yeah, I had a friend who had never come, and she started really investigating like why she didn't come. She had a whole podcast that she started to do, and one of the things she read about that really like affected her was how our moon cycles, right? Like our different cycles, how powerful that can be. So she started wearing like a little bit of her vagina like on her wrist.
Oh, this is very LA.
No, she's a New York girl. She's a New York girl and very Jewish. So it was like very outside of the box for her. And like how she started to realize that like pheromones started to like sort of change her rhythm, and like how people were talking to her, and like
interesting.
And so she really took it out of the box.
Examine it, and no pressure. Orgasms don't have to be the only goal. That's another thing. For some people, this play is just like an energetic thing, and it actually can be more fulfilling and joyful than an orgasm. So again, taking the pressure off of like, you have to have an orgasm.
Yeah,
you know,
sometimes
like,
you can just have an appetizer.
Just play. Yeah. Just play, whatever that means to you. Whatever that means to you.
I like just play.
Just play.
I like it's play.
Yeah, it's play. That's literally all it is.
Where can people find you?
I'm
Dungeon room number 3.
Yeah. Goodwill Hunting, the conference room. They can find me at Kim of the Internet on all platforms, and kimoftheinternet.com.
And is there something exciting that you like have coming up that you want to share that people should look
I mean,
up
I
to?
recently sold my business.
Incredible.
So I'm full-time nomadic, trying to figure out the next thing, having a lot of fun and having a lot of playtime. So yeah, just follow along.
Thank you so much for coming on here and for stirring it up.
Thanks for like indulging
I love that.
low-key.
Yeah, feel the leather.
Like my low-key,
like
high-key.
pinky. There's also this opens up so people can pop through.
There's also a little like shiny plastic moment. We're enjoying the textures.
This is a little, it's good. Well, thank you for stirring it up, you guys. Yeah. Please look up O Positiv. Check us out. I'm at Jade Catapretta. And let us know who you want to see next, and leave in the comments stuff that you're excited about. Thank you for stirring it up. Bye.